Every night, the village of Ajoro was swallowed by fear. The cries of the monster echoed from the thick forest, and by morning, someone would be missing or found dead, their body torn apart. No one dared leave their homes after dark. Doors were bolted, fires were put out, and prayers were whispered. The villagers had sent hunters into the forest to kill the monster, but none ever returned alive. Even the strongest warriors were no match for the beast. The monster was a mystery, and so was its hatred for the people of Ajoro. But what the villagers didn't know, what no one could have imagined, was that the monster lived among them. The monster was their king. In a village called Ajoro, there was a dark secret buried deep within the forest that surrounded it. At night, no one dared step outside their homes, for that was when the monster came to life. The villagers only heard its terrifying roars and saw the destruction it left behind: smashed doors, blood-stained earth, and missing people. No one knew what the monster looked like because anyone who went into the forest to fight it never came back. The villagers lived in fear. Even the bravest hunters avoided the forest at night. They had tried to kill the monster, but instead, the hunters became its prey. The village chiefs held countless meetings, and the king himself promised to protect his people, but nothing worked. The monster was unstoppable. One day, the villagers gathered at the palace, desperate for answers. Men, women, and children crowded the courtyard, crying and begging the king. "Who will save us? Who can stop this monster?" they pleaded. The king, sitting on his golden throne, pretended to wipe tears from his eyes. "I understand your pain," he said in a sorrowful voice. "We will find a way to stop this beast, I promise." The villagers believed him because he was their king, but unknown to everyone, the king was hiding a terrible secret. He was the monster. Every night, he transformed into the beast and went into the forest. The king called a meeting with the chiefs and suggested they bring a powerful herbalist to help. "This man will have strong magic," the king said. "He will fight the monster for us." The chiefs agreed, and soon a famous herbalist arrived at the palace. The man looked fearless. He carried a bag full of charms and potions. "I will go into the forest tonight," the herbalist said confidently. The king smiled, but it was a fake smile. Inside, he was laughing. "This fool doesn't know what he's walking into," the king thought to himself. That night, the entire village stayed awake. They wanted to see if the herbalist would succeed. As the moon rose high in the sky, the king transformed into the monster and waited in the forest. Suddenly, a deafening roar echoed through the trees. The villagers clutched each other in fear. "What's happening?" they whispered. They waited all night, but no one returned from the forest. The next morning, a group of men went to look for the herbalist. They found him lying on the ground, covered in wounds. He was alive, but barely breathing. "The monster, it's... The herbalist tried to speak, but his voice was weak. Before he could finish, he took his last breath and died. The men were confused. What was he trying to say, they wondered. No one had the answer. The king pretended to be sad, but inside, he was relieved. His secret was safe. The villagers brought another herbalist, and then another. But the same thing happened each time. The monster killed them all. Over time, the people lost hope. One day, a young man named Ojo returned to the village. He had left many years ago to study in a faraway land. When he heard about the monster, he decided to help. Ojo went to the palace and bowed before the king and the chiefs. "I will fight the monster," he said boldly. The chiefs shook their heads. "You are too young," they said. "You will die like the others." Even the villagers laughed at him. "What can a boy like you do?" they said. But Ojo stood firm. "I will fight," he said, "and I will win." The king smiled again, his fake smile. "Let him go," he said. "Let him. If he wants to die, let him." That night, Ojo went into the forest. The king, as always, transformed into the monster and waited. The villagers stayed awake, their eyes fixed on the dark forest. Suddenly, there was a loud roar, louder than ever before. Some people began to cry. "The monster has killed him," they said. Others shook their heads. "We warned him," they said. At dawn, the villagers gathered near the forest, expecting to find Ojo's lifeless body. But to their shock, they saw him walking out of the trees, dragging a long chain. At the end of the chain was the monster, tied up and struggling. The villagers screamed and stepped back. Some ran away in fear. As the sun rose higher, something incredible happened. The monster began to change. Its claws shrank, its fur disappeared, and its terrifying face became human. The villagers gasped. The monster was their king. The king hung his head in shame. He could no longer hide the truth. "When I was a child, this village sacrificed my mother to the gods. She was innocent, but they killed her to bring rain. Before she died, I promised her I would make this village pay. That is why I became the monster." Some people felt sorry for the king. They thought about the pain he must have felt as a boy, but others were furious. "You killed so many of us," they shouted. They picked up stones and threw them at the king until he fell to the ground, lifeless. The villagers turned to Ojo. "You saved us," they said. "You should be our new king." Ojo agreed, but on one condition. There will be no more human sacrifices in this village. With the king gone, the villagers made Ojo their new king. He ruled with kindness and wisdom, banning the use of humans for sacrifices. Under Ojo's rule, the village prospered and the forest became safe once more. The people began to serve the god of Ojo, who had given him the strength to defeat the monster. And so, the village of Ajoro found peace, never forgetting the boy who saved them from the monster within. In life, there is nothing covered that will not be opened one day. If you find the tale educational, please like, share, and subscribe, so that you can be notified when we post more stories like this.